It's a real honor to be here. If you look at that, my question, what do you call this? I said, well, does entrepreneurship and patient care coexist? And then I said one day, in talking to Emily and Alinda, who helped me put this together, I said, you know, I've hardly done anything based upon what I learned in medical school. Now, that's not really quite right, because they gave me a base in which I can, you know, if you have a strong base, like a base camp, your mountain climbing, you can do a lot of things securely. And then I said this off the cuff, and then Emily says, you need to write that down. So I dictated this. I've got to read this. Early in my medical career and training, I tried to do everything myself in surgery. And LD has a son like this. I wanted to control the instruments I got, wanted to clean them myself, reach for them myself. I knew then that we were doing new things all the time, it seemed, and if you could control that, then you would have fewer errors and so forth. I did okay. However, let me share something with you. I really didn't begin to grow and to soar until I learned to trust others and bring them into the area in which I was working. Involving others appropriately has been a lot of the secret, I think, to my own personal success. So I want you to understand that everything I want to say, hopefully there's not a 1 ounce of braggadocio here, because it's really sort of a celebration for me. A little bit of short personal history. I went to Whitehaven High School for 12 years. That's where LD and I met. He was an upperclassman down there. Finished there. I don't know why I didn't. They tell me that smart people, you know, jump ahead some grades. I was never offered that, so I don't know. I went to Memphis State for 1 year and then got a naval scholarship to Auburn for 4. Pre-engineering here, Auburn, both industrial management and mechanical engineering. I'm saying that because it does impact later on. I finished my management degree. I was 6 months short of getting my mechanical engineering degree, but the Navy says, no, you got to go in, and I'm glad I did. Went to the Navy for 3.5 years active duty. While there during the summer, I took organic chemistry up in Rhode Island. Came back to University of Tennessee for medical school. Finished, went one summer to Colby College, took an intense course in ophthalmology, then went up to Boston for a fellowship in the cornea service at Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary. Went back from a residency UT and back to here for 6 months for another fellowship. Then, if you would, I opened my practice in the Exchange building downtown. Back then, in the '68 and so forth, all the big doctors went down to the river and started their practice. Very interesting. And so I did that. Well, that was sort of, now remember now, '68 Martin Luther King was killed. And I went in there in my practice about 3 months later. And I soon found out that I had to move out east. Now, let's talk about the eye for a minute. Here's the eye, the eyelids blink up and down. Here's the front of the eye. These are the tear ducts. When you cry, you get the sniffles because the overflow of tears flow down into your nose. Now, something that we all need to realize. The front of the eye is covered with a very thin tear film. Now, where on your body does your body have a fluid surface to the outside environment? Is it your nose? Is it your ear? Is it your elbow? No, none of those. It's your eye. And if we tape your eyelids and prevent you from blinking and keeping that tear film pristine, in about 20 or 30 minutes, you can hardly see the big E down at the end of the room. So this pristine tear film has to be a certain thickness so that you see well. Now remember this, 85% of all you've learned in life and probably continue to learn is through vision. So if you didn't have that clear tear film, you might be walking around not quite as educated as you are. So it's really sort of this little thin tear film is very important. Now we discovered, I thought we could help, that when this thing got real thin, that if we prevented some loss going into the tear duct, we could help thicken this up. So we came up with the Punctum Plug. Now out of this, over a period of about 5 or 6, 7, 8 years, I had to personally go through 8 different companies, and along the way, my blessed friend here, L.D. Beard, helped me turn out some of them. It was in blue silicon, if you remember something in search that Richards were made. We called them Old Blue. But finally, we ended up forming on my then secretary's desk EagleVision, and through some stops and starts over the years, it is still functioning. And we've merged with another company, and we're trying to go through a period of growth now. Next. The early 70s for me, I mean, some of you I know were in grammar school and all, but they were pivotal years for me and for us. We moved east to the Memphis Hospital Doctors Building. We began work on the Punctum Plug. There was a slow change to small incision surgery. Cataract surgery then had been a big incision, open up, remove the cataract, close it up with sutures. We started doing it through a little incision about the size of a straw. And then later on, it evolved so that through that small incision that was engineered to snap shut after we finished, we rolled up and we put in an implant. One of the first patients I did was a little lady in a big Sunday school class of teachers and all at Bellevue Baptist Church, who was down there at the time in Midtown. And you know, when your grandparents, if they were lucky enough to have cataract surgery, by the way, our healthcare system is not broken. It is the best healthcare system in any nation in the world. It's the best healthcare system in all of history. We can tweak it, yes. If economically we could help the poorest in our country have better habits, better income, that's where we would go. But we don't want to destroy what we have and dumb it down. This lady, instead of wearing the big Coke bottle glasses that you wear after traditional cataract surgery, her power, that implant was placed inside her eye after a pupil. And there's some people in this room that have these lens implants and you can't tell who they are because they're not wearing any glasses. In 1974, we went to China. No, 76, we first went to China. We went back in 78. Lucky enough at the time to start working with Linda Fleming, who became our administrator and still is. And right now our surgery center is going through a AAAHC inspection, which is the very highest level of getting your surgery center certified. We had the first office that worked with an optometrist in the state of Tennessee. Thomas Gettelfinger, when I went to China in 76, I had about 50, 100, 200 patients had lens implants, but there's no one else in town doing lens implants. It's like you were trading, you know, selling something, and then you didn't have anybody know what would happen should you sell it or something. So I was lucky enough to ask Tom Gettelfinger to come in. We talked about it. So while I was in China in 76, he took care of those patients. Next. Now, this is a little photograph to show that this is the front of the eye. Behind the pupil here is a natural crystalline lens. As we age, this becomes a little bit yellow, slightly darker yellow than brown, and it's like a filter. It can completely block light going back to the retina. If you open the little incision, open this up, and remove the contents of this cataract, leave the bag, we can insert a lens implant behind the pupil, sometimes in front of the pupil, and then all the power that is out there in your glasses can be put behind the pupil, and you can't tell that you've even had it. Now, during all this, something that has been a lot meant a lot to me, and hopefully you probably already know about it, is that the Chinese term or symbols for crisis is composed of two symbols. This top one here means danger, alone. That looks like that's a knife blade cutting back, I don't know. This right here is sort of a lot of stuff in there. Maybe it stands for the opportunity. Danger, opportunity, together crisis. We faced crisis from day one, this rapid growth. We went back to China in '78. I was leading a group from the International Intraocular Implant Club. They were from Europe, all over America and so forth. And while there, we had a talk by a missionary from Pakistan who told us we need to develop a high quality lens implants for poor people that would cost $10 less that would be available. We accomplished that. We had continuing growth in our practice. The mission overseas, which started really about '70, became bigger. And here's a group of us down in Mexico. And I don't know if Linda's been there, but Emily's been there more than once. And we take a complete operating room down to Mexico, wherever we go, set it up, and 5 days later we disassemble it and bring it back. And I was telling many people that when we were a little bit smaller, we would take down the very same instruments. Some were diamond blades, delicate, and we would either operate on the richest person in Memphis, and then a week later we were down in Mexico operating on the poorest person there. Next. We usually fly from Memphis down to Houston, Dallas, then down to Acapulco on the coast. This is our most frequent trip. Then drive 4.5 hours in a bus down to the little town of Ometepec that's up in the mountains. This is a 1,000-year-old town, Aztec named, and I think we've probably been there maybe 35 or 40 times. That's not the only place we've gone. We've been to China 20 times. We've been to several places in Africa, put the first lens implant inside the nation of Kenya, taught some people in Egypt. Didn't do much in India, but Tom Gettelfinger did in Brazil. But we sometimes be operating on a patient at MECA, and they would talk about our mission work. And we'd look around, and probably half the people in that room, and sometimes 100% of the people in that room, have been on the mission field. They were operating on that patient. And I tell you, going on one of these trips, if you we'd like to invite you. You'd have to pay your own way, and you'd have to work while you're down there, but it changes your life. We've had stories after these trips. We had one person from Mexico that sells these timeshares down there in one of the places in Acapulco. She got up and said, I was ready to commit suicide last week, but says, I can't do it now after this week. And when you do something for others, and we tell them, look, you don't have to be a nurse, you don't have to be a doctor, because you're here, you're going to help us see more patients. I assure you that maybe because you're here, we'll do 2 or 3 more patients. And that person, when they get up in the morning, when they get up every morning for the rest of their lives, they'll see because you were here. And it's true, totally true. Now something, I want to say that doing all this, you have to have a secure base. Now these Maxim by Maurice Mascarenas was loaned to me, given to me by Larry Papasine, one of our heroes in this town, headed Memphis Light, Gas and Water, then chairman of what's orthopedic company, Smith and Matthew, and now is on the board of regents. He says, profits are much like breathing. If we don't breathe, we are dead. If we don't achieve enough profit for the risks we take, we're also dead. But the purpose of life is not to breathe. Breathing is a requirement, not an objective. Profit is a necessary requirement to stay in business. That applies to every one of us here. It's not an objective. Profits are a risk premium we need as we commit today's finite resources. Remember, our government does not understand our resources are finite. We do. We commit today's finite resources to tomorrow's uncertain return. Now, in the late 70s, early 80s, we continued to grow. Here's one of the lens implants we designed with a few modifications. This still is the world standard for putting a lens in front of the pupil. When we signed an agreement on this, we asked that there'll be no royalties paid when these are put into patients wherever they are. We discovered back 10 or so years ago that if you put epinephrine into this solution when you remove a cataract, it keeps the pupil much larger, safe for surgery. And right now, probably in 500,000, 3,000 places in the world, epinephrine is being used in that solution right now. It all started here in Memphis. We developed the first pulsar. Ultrasound is used to dissolve the cataract, to move it through a small opening. And we had the idea to break this up in little short, little staccato movements. It's on every modern phaco machine in the world today. We had some different lens implants. Go ahead. Now, under pressure from the hospital, we couldn't get the operating rooms that we needed back 20 years ago. From China, we learned that you could do cataract surgery and actually let them go home that same day. We came back to Memphis after being in China. The tradition then was leave a patient in the hospital for 5 days. We started shortening it to 4, then 3, then 2, then 1 day surgery. And then in the early 80s, in right doing one of our depressions, so that's why I say, look, Jerry, don't get so discouraged right now because things are bad economically. We built our surgery center out on Poplar Avenue. And the interest was 12% on this building. LD reminded me today that he was paying 18% at the same time on one of your businesses, I'm not sure. Now, this was the first freestanding surgery center in Tennessee. It resulted in lower charges for the facility. There's a surgeon's fee and a facility fee, like hospital fee. And we figured multiple times, we've saved this community, and now there are about 12 or more ASCs in Memphis, millions of dollars for a facility fee, probably tens of millions. Here's a little picture of this. One thing I think is fun about our surgery center, we have large rooms. This is one window right there, window in the door, window this way. And behind us, those are windows to the outside. Most operating rooms in Memphis, no matter where you go, they have blank walls like this. Is it raining outside? Is the sun shining? If you're a surgeon all day long, nurse, you don't know that. We put windows there. Something about it, you take a patient from pre-op, roll them in on a stretcher, go in this room. From this ante-room where the surgical instruments clean, they roll in, you do the surgery. Now these instruments, we call them dirty now. They roll back out this, they do not go here, it's clean room. They go back here, the patient goes here, the instruments go back in here, clean to a double-ended autoclave, go back there. It's like a little cycle here. On this room, the cycle goes this way. So we're going this, I think it's sort of a fun thing, and it works so beautifully, I don't know why it hadn't been done. We had the first excimer here in Memphis for refractive surgery. We built our own excimer laser at one time. Had a marvelous team from University of Memphis at 4 or 5, and Linda's husband was part of it. PhD candidates, electrical engineers. We came up with multiple patents. To the right, that is a digital micro mirror device. About 6 or 10 microns across, a little bit larger than a red blood cell. They turn on and off about 10,000 times a second, I mean. We discovered that we could do this and apply the excimer laser to the surface of the eye. We have about 10 or so patents on that. And we have not been able to get a large company to buy into this. It's protected. We keep updating our patents. But a treatment that takes about 12 to 30 seconds on the eye, with this micro mirror device, we can do it in about less than 2 seconds. And it's because they're so smooth, because they're so small, it's a very smooth surface. Now remember, all this time, we had a strong base. We had a wonderful medical staff and a physician staff. Now we were able to establish here at the University of Tennessee, Harold Ridley was a physician in England that invented the intraocular lens. I got to know him the last 20 so years of his life. Stayed at his cottage, Keeper's Cottage in Memphis, not Memphis, but we do have a little house on a farm called Keeper's Cottage. Stayed in his cottage there in Salisbury, England, is that right? Several times, got to know him. He was finally knighted by the Queen. Now, this is a medal that was struck in his honor. Now on the back of it, I want you to look at this. We put 4 words. Those words are creativity, innovation. Very, very important. But the third word may be the most important. Perseverance. If you do not persevere in whatever you're doing, if you're on the right track, we will never have productivity. Now, also, these are our speakers. This one right here in 2004 was Charlie Kelman. Charlie Kelman did many things, but he invented the small incision cataract surgery. And so you can go in and have cataract surgery, have topical anesthesia, go home in 30 minutes, have a lens implant. And you have a handout today, not only by the Maxims, by Mascarenhas, but also one of the most thoughtful treatises on what is creativity, written by Charlie Kelman. Go ahead. So what are our challenges today? And it's 2010. We went from managing growth early in our career. Now we're really more managing cost. Our cost of doing our work is about 80%. Physicians take home about 20%. It used to be almost the other way around. If they cut us 20%, which they're planning to do, that's all we take home, you know. So anyway, that's a real challenge. That's a crisis, isn't it? So let's avoid this danger, try to find the opportunity. We're now down to not only managing costs, but managing opportunities. Let me share with you what is an exciting opportunity we think. We've been invited by a group by the governor of Alexandria, who's a military guy, under the president, but one person, 2 prominent ophthalmologists, to join with them and build a MECA-like facility about 4 times larger in the city of Alexandria. People down here, we said Qatar, but they pronounce it Qatar. They heard about these people and they said, we would like for you guys up here with those guys from America to come down here in Qatar and take over this department and run it also. Egypt is somewhat poor. Qatar has either first or second highest income in the world. And what is interesting, there's someone here, a friend of yours, Keith Smith, who's taken international MBA from Duke University, and he's been to St. Petersburg this year, London, is going to India and Dubai. One of his classmates is from Qatar, a member of the royal family. We've already had these people from here go down through our contact with Keith, and this guy here has already come up and said, I'll be your guarantor in Qatar. So are we going to manage that opportunity? I hope we do. But it's going to come from a secure base people like Emily, Linda Fleming, Tom Gettelfinger, my two sons are who are better doctors than I ever was. Outside, and Hal Wright, David Irvine. It's really sort of fascinating. I think we have maybe 6 minutes for, or do we? I'm not sure. Questions?